What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about the Fatback Exercises. The Fatback Exercises are basically different places that this bass drum on your right foot can go, right or left foot, depending on how your kit's set up. It's just basically the different places they can go, and it's really important to know all this because then there's a lot of groove possibilities that become open to you just from knowing exactly where where the pattern lies. So the first step is we're just going to look at the hands, which are going to be doing 4 things. So you can either count them as 1, 2, 3, 4, or if we're doing it correctly, it's 1 and 2 and. So I'll just count them both ways just so you get an idea. So it's 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4. So once you've got that, we now look at the different places that you can put the bass drum. And so the first one, and by the way, we like to do all these with a metronome if possible. So I'm going to do it it'll be an explanation without the metronome, then an explanation with the metronome. So the first one we're going to look at is the bass drum just on the 1. This is a common one. It's in pretty much the bulk of songs that you ever hear. There's many good examples out there. A lot of AC/DC tracks are very good for just this one beat. So here we go. It's just 1 and 2 and, or 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the first one. And if we're going to tie that onto the metronome, you want to cover every beat. So if you set up an 8th note metronome, or if you don't have the function of an 8th note metronome like I don't here, all you can do is just double the speed. So if you're going at the moment I've got this at about, let's have a look and see what this is. So this is 110. So that would be 55 BPM, but this is doubled up because I don't have an 8th note function. So we want to count it like this. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1. So that's the first one. The second one we want to look at is the one, it falls on the E. So we count it all as 1 E and a. 1 E and a. Just for the first set of bass drums. So these are all the bass drums before the snare drum. So the second one is E. And the way I like to think of this one for some people who struggle with this, because this is probably the hardest of the 4 that we have. The one that people find quite confusing. So what I like to think of it is hand, foot, hand. Hand, foot, hand. And then what we do is add the snare and the hi-hat in the same way. So it goes hand, foot, hand, snare, hat. Hand, foot, hand, snare, hand. Hand, foot, hand, snare, hand. So if we pop our metronome on. Hand, foot, hand, snare, hand. Hand, foot, hand, snare, hand. Hand, foot, hand, hand. Hand, foot, hand, hand. So the next one is now, the sun's just come out in the middle of this. So it might look a bit, hello sun. It's nice to get some sun here. So the next one would be the and. So it'd be 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. So pop the metronome and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. So that one and the first one tend to be the easiest ones because we get used to just playing the hi-hat with the foot at the same time. But now we're going to look at the fourth one, which is on the so 1 E and So the way I look at this one is it's the space before the snare. And this is where people get confused because they tend to play this, but then they revert back to pattern number 2. So this one is... So now with the metronome. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Alright, now for for the next one. So this, we're combining the first two together. And this usually throws people off because it's a combination of having it with the hi-hat and the bass drum together and the bass drum on its own. So that then becomes 1 E and 2 and 1 E and 2. So now with the metronome. 1, 2, 2, 1. The next one is pretty common. It's one that you already probably got the idea. It's both of the first two hi-hats have bass drums on them, which makes it quite easy. And now the next one is on the so we take that bass drum at the end and we move it by 1/16. So this now becomes and again, that's one that some people find a bit more difficult. So if I bring the metronome into play, 2, 3, 4. And the next one is one that people also find quite difficult because there's one without the bass drum, without the hi-hat, sorry, and then it goes into the hi-hat. So it's this, and then we have the two together. So, and then we bring the snare. And now we've got the next one, which is hand, foot, snare. And now we start the double. We've looked at a few of the doubles, which are just... But now we start this double on the second hi-hat. So it goes 1 and 1 and 2, 1 and 1 and 2. And then we look at the next one now, and Mr. Sun is back again. Hello. So the next one is now going to be 1 E and a 2 and. For that one, we go 1, 2 and So now let's put that into practice. And now the next one, we just play them in reverse now. So that now becomes... So with the metronome. Now the next step is we play 3 bass drums, but the first one is with the hi-hat, second is on its own, and then the third one is also with the hi-hat. So this becomes... And then the next one is taking that and bringing it forward. Taking the first 16th note, sorry. Take the first 16th note and putting it at the end. So this becomes... And then we have all 4 bass drums now, which will be... And so what's cool about these patterns is you can actually just mix them up as you wish, which I'll let you do in your own time. But here's the first 4. I'll just give you the first 4 with the metronome, and then it's up to you for your homework to work on the rest of them by yourself. So here's the first 4. Couple more. So so you see there was the first 4 and then a couple more, and then I just improvised. I just let the foot just kind of do a few different things as it wanted to, and that's the idea of what we have here. So take this away, practice that sheet in the a similar way to the way I have, and I've also showed you how to do it. So yeah, just take that away, and I'll see you next time where we'll take this a bit further. Ta-ra.